Okay, here we go.
Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Hey, afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Oh, here we are. Oh, yeah. Another week.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an exciting week. It's the week leading up to Podcast Movement.
Yes, everybody's scrambling around trying to get their schedules pulled together and trying to figure out who they're going to talk to at the event. Oh, yeah, it's crazy times. All right.
I'm not really worried about that at all.
You're not? Good.
Nope. That's going to happen natively.
Well, it does do that as well. I agree with you.
And I don't specifically go seeking out a whole bunch of people. I don't need to do that. But we're more worried about getting two products out the door. One that is going to be announced tomorrow morning, and then one that, fingers crossed, I make it Monday. The team hasn't even, I've seen it all, but they haven't given it to me for final testing. So I'm like, oh, so yeah. Anyway, but
Pressure's on, right?
Anyway, so a little new background going on there.
Yeah, I finally got my background built out like I've been talking about for the last month and a half.
It looks like a disco back there for sure.
It's true. It's true a little bit. I could actually just click a couple of buttons and tone it down.
Yeah, you got a little remote control, but it's fun today. So before we get into the content today, we do have some boosts that have come in. We're wired for boosts, so anybody that boosts the show, I don't think I'm going to get the lit tag ready before Podcast Movement. It's just too many things going to happen here. But we got 10,000 sats from River City Mystery podcast. Todd Rob, thank you for all you do to keep us informed what's going on in the podcast space. Matt Dig, D-I-G. If I pronounced it wrong, Matt, I apologize. And I got 2,220 stats from Adam Curry. He says 6 panelists. That's too many.
It could very well be too many, but
so you're gonna have to keep the topics tight, and you and I are gonna have to shut up.
I'm actually in the middle of trying to pull those topics together in my typical outline.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be pretty short, like 3 things we'll be able to talk about.
I think it'll be maybe like 4. I mean, thank goodness we have an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, we need 3. Yeah. So we got 1,000 sats from Everything Everywhere. Longtime listener. Figure I should boost after the call to action on the most recent episode. Glad to see Blueberry adopting podcast. Oh, I think we read that one already. Oh, well, maybe not. Glad to see Blueberry adopting 2.0. Lives and needs to step up. Gary Ardent. Everything Everywhere Daily. Let's see here. This one was another 50. Oh, wrong show. 2,500 sats from Mike Dell. So I think that gets us caught up on boost and those of you that are not using the Fountain app or any of the Podcast 2.0 apps to listen to the show, you're doing yourself a disservice. No longer need Apple Podcasts. No longer need Spotify. All you need is a Podcast 2.0 app, and you can earn money, especially when Fountain listening to the show. So how about that?
Right. That's awesome.
So, Rob, what is the deal? Libsyn has been spending money like a drunk sailor. What is this? 5 acquisitions in a year? Have you guys lost your minds over there?
Well, yeah, I probably. But,
any sane company does one acquisition in 1 year. You did 5? You guys are crazy.
Well, I guess there's nothing like,
chaos.
Move fast.
No, it's not moving fast. It's chaos. Admit it.
Well, okay. It's chaos.
Of course.
It's a structured chaos, right?
I see. Yep. Okay. If that's a story and you're sticking to it, then that's good.
I think we wanted to kind of get more involved in the European market. So the company that we acquired, Julpa, who's in Berlin and Munich and all those, that gives us a little bit of a footprint in Europe. So I think
You
it's
guys
good.
you guys weren't already doing business in Europe with Libsyn?
Well, we were to some degree, but there's nothing like having a physical presence there that actually understands the market on a day-to-day basis and can focus on it. So, yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, yeah, good for you guys. Like I said, spending money like drunk sailors. Holy
Wow.
cow.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah, busy,
Yeah.
busy, busy. So one thing I can do here on the show is, because we're cutting it loose largely this afternoon, just the press release and blog post I'll go out a little later today, but we're done. We got the programmatic built. It's
Good.
tested. So all Blueberry hosting customers as of probably tomorrow morning will be able to monetize.
Awesome.
Flip the switch. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Our biggest challenge was the PowerPress integration, because we have to do some things on our regular publishing platform. It's easy. We just flip a switch and we change some URLs and it's done. Well, because all the PowerPress users are basically on their own .coms and they control their own RSS feeds, we have to do a sync. We basically do a little connection, do a little API call, do a little flip-de-doo-dah. And they tested on my show, Geek News Central, about 30 times, and I backed the system up, but I was fully expecting them to thrash my URLs because there's 3,000 media feeds that had to be updated.
Right.
And the first time they did the flip, I said, "Hey guys, we don't need to be flipping the MP4s; those aren't getting monetized." So they had to go back and do some more code. But anyway, it's ready, and so this has been a long time coming. But I will give you one hint, Rob, on what we're doing on Monday.
Okay.
And it's a feature that will benefit listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Want to take a guess?
Have no idea.
Good. That's great. That means you guys can't code it up over the weekend. Actually, I don't think.
Going to scramble and get it out before you.
Yeah.
Well, because we are launching programmatic ads as well in this time frame. So it's called auto ads.
So when do you guys turn that on?
Well, it's actually been operational for a while. It's been in just with a few customers as we've been kind of scaling it up. So it's actually been active for a few months now. It's just not across the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
So not quite yet.
Yeah. So we're cutting it loose to everyone. And I guess I can say it now. We partnered with SoundStack, and they're our provider and our DSP. And I guess that's the correct term. I don't know.
Yep.
But
demand partner. Right?
Yep. And they're the ones that are going to be filling all the inventory, which is exciting. They've got huge. I don't know. They got like 30 different integrations with 30 different ingress points. So, yeah, it's gonna be good. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how many shows. We know how many has signed up for the pre. They said, "Oh, we want it." So we'll let them all know tomorrow morning that they can go in and actually. There's only two things they got to do: read term service. Because we don't collect a lot of information when people sign up, so we ask them what country they're in and what language their show is produced in, and then that will basically set it up so that the data we send over during that trigger to get the ad insertion on the pre-roll or post-roll will get the right type of ad. That way you won't have you won't hear a French ad in an English show, or you won't hear a German ad in a Spanish show, and vice versa. So, so we're excited, and we're ready to go in a lot of countries too. So that's even more exciting. So,
that's the power of doing anything with dynamic ad insertion, is that you can target the spots to the geo location that they're going to. I mean, others will try and target using other principles, but we
the trick
tend to shy away from that a little bit.
The only thing that has been a little bit of a hiccup that we've seen is that because there's so many people that are submitting ads, At the end of near the end of the month, what we've noticed is someone that hasn't moved all their inventory. Let's say it's a Spanish ad. They will put it in their system as English, and an English show will get a Spanish ad. So they've been whack-a-moling a few bad individuals. So that's the only thing that we've seen so far that raised a concern. Now, if a Spanish show wants to sell against my English audience, great, I'll take their money. But my audience won't understand a word they said, so it won't be effective. And I really don't want them exposed to that, to be honest with you. But that's the only real hiccup we've seen. And, we did do a exclusion of like 8 or 9 categories of content too. So that happened. But
yeah, because it is hard to target like a spot that's done in another language to another language listener, unless that show is in another language.
Yeah, it makes no sense,
Right.
And they're not supposed to do that. They get whacked. Matter of fact, they go on like this exclusion list. They will never ever get ads in again because they've lied in their onboarding of their content.
Now, where it gets a little gray is that sometimes it's okay for English to flow out into other.
I don't know how that works.
But it may not be cool either. So it's one of those areas that the industry needs to adjust on.
Now, if the geo is in Guadalajara, then fire the Spanish ad, because you're more than potentially having a Spanish listener. But again, maybe not. Maybe it's an expat listening. So you never know.
That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with people that are usually multi-language, and that's where it gets complicated, right? Because you just don't know what language they primarily understand or comprehend, right? And who that audience is that's catering to that. So
I'm sure, just like anything else, there's going to be a little bit of, growing pains. I hope not too much. And they've been super responsive whenever we've heard something and it didn't belong. And so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's, the tech's pretty good, but it's not a 99.9. Right. I'll settle for 99. But anyway, hey, lots of stuff in the whole news market. You sent me over a couple of things here today, and I've been head down. We've been just so busy trying to get this thing out the door. This pod sites and its quarter 322 benchmark ad frequency dropped.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. In this case, fewer might be better. Is the key takeaway. I mean, how many times do you want to hammer that listener with a message before they get it, right? And at some point, there's a threshold that you get to where it becomes an annoyance, and then they turn and have a negative perception of the brand. So it's a balance, right? As with a lot of things in podcasting, it's a delicate balance to try and get things right, not upset people, but keep a positive kind of relationship going.
So average frequency dipped 6.3 to 4.7. The company says improved ad effectiveness. Now, what's even more bizarre, they said that programmatic ads work better than embedded ones. Now, did they get their language wrong? Are they supposed to say that ad inserted ads, host endorsed ad inserted ads work better than embedded ones? Is that what they meant to say?
I think, the 63% that I see in their study that's showing 63% higher conversion rate for dynamic ads than embedded ads. So when you say embedded ads, I'm assuming baked in host reads, right?
Embedded could be host endorse injected. So,
dynamic ads would be using dynamic insertion,
but that's not programmatic. They said the company reports that programmatic ads work better than embedded ones. Programmatic is way different.
Still dynamically inserted, though.
I agree, but it's way different than that's not a host endorse. That's a Geico ad or Ford.
Okay. There is a different line item for produced ads versus host read ads. So that's right below it. 27% more effectiveness for produced ads.
Okay. And what was the effectiveness for programmatic ads?
It doesn't actually break that out.
Oh.
I would imagine that produced ads would be more programmatic ads.
I would think so.
Right.
All right.
So, but more and more, a pre-recorded host read is a produced ad too. But I guess it depends on who's doing the producing.
Right.
All right. Is it the brand or is it the host doing the host read?
Right.
And are we talking about baked in? So I think that there's some definitional issues being used as terms are being thrown around because there are some distinctions here that make a difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but it is kind of flies in the face of what we typically have heard, where the embedded ads or baked in, maybe I'm assuming that's what they're implying here, has always been more effective because it's more authentic, because it's read by the host, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
What they're saying here is that the pre-produced dynamic ads may be more effective, which
if it's pre-produced by the host, yeah, maybe, of course. But it's again, if
they're not clearly drawing the lines.
No,
here. That's the thing.
If you're being effective, the pre-produced ad should not sound any different than the host endorsed ad.
If it's done right.
It would two in the same.
Right. But a typical Geico ad doesn't sound like a host read.
No.
So I think that's where the line is for me anyway, as I think about this. Right.
Yeah, I think so too. So it's curious, I guess. But is the average frequency dropping because less money's being spent?
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
I don't know. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to mention about pre-rolls, which I think I've been putting out for a long time, that mid-rolls are the way to go as you look to the future.
Of course.
But it still appears that the ad buyers are still looking for pre-rolls.
It's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy. Wow. That's the case. By the way, I found a new Red Bull version I like. It's the strawberry apricot. It's delicious. And I know a lot of people aren't Red Bull fans. This is delicious. Strawberry apricot. Red Bull still looking for that sponsorship here.
Well, supposedly we're on dynamic ad insertion now, right, Todd?
Yes, we are.
Maybe is Red Bull running campaigns?
If anybody hears one, let me know. And that's another thing too. If this audience, if you're listening to the audio version of this, and the fill rate's because we just kind of turned this on for this show. So it's going to grow over the next 60, 90 days as they learn about the show. If you hear an ad that's not appropriate, send me an email and send me the actual media file. Yeah, that's what I want. I want the media file. So let us know if you hear something just is completely whacked.
There's a lot of people, Todd, that don't know how to get the media files anymore.
Huh?
I would say that there's a lot of people that don't know how to get the media files from podcasts.
They're on their phone.
I know, but
okay.
They may not know. I mean, they can share the episode link probably.
Probably. Well, it won't be the same unless I get their audio file or just tell me who the advertiser was.
Right.
That wasn't right.
Yeah.
Or if you hear, someone speaking Arabic or something, whatever it may be, that's what we want to know. So here's the thing too. This is like really putting it out there. This audience is the ones that gets to hear this product, whether it works or not. And again, not everyone's going to hear an ad, so it is kind of disappointing when you click play and you don't get one. You're like, crap, but it also knows when I've hit it 2 or 3 times, to try to sample you know, and it says, "Oh, no, 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 you've already had your turn."
Right. Move on, dude.
You're not getting any more. No cheating, you know, no clicking the play button to drive up the ad rates.
Right.
And so just so you know, I don't do that, but I do probably click 2 or 3 times over the course of the week to hear what's being run.
Right. Yeah, I think it was Google with their AdWords and stuff like that had to put filters like that in there.
Yeah.
In the early days of that type of dynamic advertising.
Yeah, they actually filtered the owner's IP.
That's right.
Yeah, and you weren't allowed to click. You weren't supposed to click.
Yeah, and if you were a competitor, there were people that in the early days would get in and just click the button over and over again to drive up the budgets.
That's right.
Right.
That's where those Chinese click farms come in handy.
Right.
Yeah, go hit that certain ad from certain company 800 times.
If you have a whole bank of phones that automatically do it. Right?
Oh, I don't think that's effective anymore. I at least
I don't think it is either. They're catching that stuff big time.
Yeah, they can do. Oh, why is this all coming through? You know, this is all coming from a certain region in China or Bangalore in India or wherever.
Yeah, correct.
But anyway,
yeah.
So this I didn't get to listen to this U.S. Latino podcast listener report that came out by Edison. I was, I'm afraid I didn't even know about it until you sent me the email. I heard nothing about this. So why wasn't this advertised better?
I think they let everybody know about it a few weeks ago, and then I think Pod News covered it. But yeah, it's interesting, you know. This area of podcasting is it's safe to say, is kind of exploding. You know, it's doing quite well.
So let's look at this. 2,500 interviews, June of 2022.
Yep.
Date weighted to match age, sex, country of origin. U.S. Hispanic Latino population, Infinite Dial 2022 podcast listening statistics. Survey offered in both English and Spanish. So U.S. Latinos birthplace, 70% in the United States, 30% outside.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the breakdown was. So here's some numbers. U.S. Latinos 18 plus ever listened to a podcast. In 2020, it was 45%. In 2022, it was 59%. Only a 3% increase between 21 and 22, which is not a big number, but still.
Mm-hmm.
Growth.
Yeah.
And we'll say this looks like it was sponsored by Edison, Andande Media, LWC Studios, Libsyn PRX, and XXM Media. Get that out there. So for writing a check on this one.
Yeah.
51% of U.S. Latinos have ever listened to a podcast that was mostly in English. 2021 was 48%. 33% of U.S. Latinos have ever listened to a podcast that was mostly in Spanish. That number has not grown from 2021.
Yeah. Mostly in Spanish.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah, mostly in Spanish. You're right. Listen to a podcast in the last month. Oh. U.S. population 18 plus went from 40 to 38%. U.S. total population 18 plus 40 to 38%. U.S. Latinos 18 plus 36 to 34. That's not a good sign of it going down.
Yeah, actually, yeah. It's interesting to see what the Edison share of ear study shows this coming year too, whether or not we're seeing a slight decline.
Well, the numbers show it. If we go over and look at the podcast index stuff, we've seen numbers decline.
Yeah, I mean that's in the number of shows.
But that would equal less listens because you're going to have a drop. It's going to be
right.
It's going to cause the listens to go down too. Yeah. Listen to a podcast in the last month. Whoa. U.S. Latinos 18 plus 34, born in the U.S. 37, born outside the U.S. 29%. So born outside the U.S. 29. 20.
Well, there's definitely more Latinos listening to podcasts in the last month in the U.S. than Born in the U.S. versus, okay.
Yeah, 37 versus 29.
Total Latinos is 34%.
Yeah, U.S. Latinos 18%. Born in the U.S. 37. What's the difference? Born in the U.S. Does that mean that's a population as a whole, that's including everybody, or?
Yeah, it's just the Latinos that were born in the U.S. versus born outside
but what's
of the U.S.
What's U.S. Latinos 18+?
That's everybody born in or born outside, I would imagine.
Okay, all right. That's a little confusing to me.
Yeah.
27% of U.S. Latinos report listening to a podcast in the last week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Latino monthly podcast listeners, 30% of U.S. Latino adults estimated at 15 million people. That's still a pretty big group of individuals listening to podcasts.
Right.
So, this is interesting. Gender of U.S. Latino monthly podcast listeners. Wow.
Still mostly men, but it's catching up.
But not by much. 53-47.
Yeah.
2021 was 58-42. 20 was 55-45. So the ladies have joined the party more between 21 and 22, for sure.
It's about it's a 5% increase.
Mm-hmm.
And then a 5% decrease for men.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that would make sense.
Yeah. Age of U.S. Latino monthly podcast listeners, 2022, 18 to 34, 47, 35 to 54, 42, and age 55 plus 11. See, here we go. This 35 to 54 number, podcasting is maturing.
It is. Well, people get old.
People are getting older. And, my show's always been 35 plus crowd. So even from the back in the beginning of 04, but,
I think when we first started talking about this, Todd, I think we saw that the 18 to 34 number was usually pretty low. And then the
18 to 25 was low, but yeah.
And the comment that I made is, over time, those people get older, and then they're going to convert over to the other side. And so what we've seen is actually, I think a much more rapid expansion of the 18 to 34 market than we had seen in the past. So, but it looks like that the 55 plus area it's not really, I guess it's growing compared to 2021, but it's about the same as it was in 2020.
So Tom just said, sorry, I missed his comment earlier. We're putting out a study on Tuesday that is the best look at these differences that I've worked on. And so
that's great.
They're putting out something. I don't know exactly what the title of it is, but Tom seems pretty doggone it. He's been raving about this for like the last 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
About this, the data they're going to put out Podcast Movement. So we're going to have something to chew on coming out of Podcast Movement for sure. But sadly, we're going to be off the week after Podcast Movement because I'm going to be, where am I going to be? I think I'm going to be in Vegas the day we're supposed to do the show, speaking to a group of people. But interesting on this breakdown on age. Let's move on here. Religion. Now, this should not come as a surprise. Religion of U.S. Latino monthly podcast list, 40% Catholic, 31% other Christian, 7% other religions, atheist 22. This is a stark difference from, I think slides I've seen in the past, if I remember correctly, in the United States, the folks that are denominational are much less, I think, if I remember. But again, I don't remember the AB on this, but not surprised. It's 71, 78% are Catholic, other Christian, or other. So faith-based shows in Spanish probably do pretty well.
Yeah, I would imagine they would.
Generation of U.S. Latino monthly listeners. U.S. born first gen, 48. Excuse me. U.S. born second gen, 14. U.S. born third gen, 13%. Born outside the United States, 25. That's That's interesting.
I do have to say, I kind of wonder why this data, how this data helps the industry knowing this. I'm not quite sure.
Well,
I understand.
Yeah, think about that for a second.
I mean, it's not like there's going to be any kind of. I mean, it's a interesting.
Well,
fact to know,
if you are third,
does it tell us
if
really
you're third
much?
generation,
right?
You know, first generation, your parents were somewhere in Latin America, right? And
Right.
or you know, maybe I shouldn't generalize, but you know, they lived somewhere outside of the United States. So they were born here, but their parents weren't. So there's a different perspective. If you're second gen, then that means your grandparents were the ones that immigrated here, and then third gen, it's like, you know, the great grandparents. So that's I mean, when you get into great, that is so I think it's a while, right? So parents, grandparents, so great grandparents, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting data point. I just not quite sure I understand what the mapping is to podcast listening, but
yeah, I guess they just, you know, they try to figure out, you know, how long has your family been here? How ingrained in America are you?
Right.
Maybe that's the thing. I don't know. 17% of U.S. Latino monthly podcast listeners identified as LGBTQ. That's an interesting number.
Mm-hmm.
What is the U.S.?
I don't know.
That's an amazing number to me. That's a wower. Wow.
Yeah.
17%.
Yeah, it's a big number.
That's a big number. I think
if you're talking about 15 million people, right? It's a big number.
That's a big number. I'm kind of surprised about this. Wow. I'm going to tell you, if you're going to do a Spanish, if you're Latino and you're LGBTQ plus, time for a podcast. Holy cow!
Right. Well, that's what the industry.
Yeah.
That's what we need. That's
wow. That's a big number. I don't know. I wonder what the U.S. population. You know, here's the thing to think about too.
It could be fairly close to that.
In the early days of podcasting, if we look at this from a historical standpoint, there was no outlets. True, you know, there was a little bit on mainstream media, not much. But in the beginning of podcasting, the big shows came out. Feast of Fools. There was a whole line of LGBTQ shows that launched in the very, very early days of podcasting. Some of the shows are still going today. And this was 2004, 2005. And why did they launch? They launched because this was at the time, was the only outlet to be able to get distribution, be able to get the word out. There wasn't this, like today, the embracement of LGBTQ in mainstream media. It wasn't like that. So the LGBTQ space, that's why the podcast awards, we've always had an LGBTQ category from the day one, because there was a big representation.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And Todd, if you look at the next slide, it talks about 7% of American adults.
Oh, there's the number I was looking for.
Have identified as the LGBTQ.
So 7% of American adults identify as LGBTQ. 11% of Latino adults in 2021 identified as LGBTQ.
So that number has grown then.
But listen to this. In 2018, 22% of Latino millennials identified as LGBTQ, as according to the University of Chicago.
Oh, so I don't know that this is 7% of American adults identify as LGBTQ plus podcast listeners.
No. This is overall.
Overall population.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you look at the between seven there, so the Latino
over-indexing.
Yeah, the Latino community is over-indexing. Absolutely. Wow.
As podcast listeners.
Right.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah, that's what this means.
Tom says U.S. population according to last Gallup data. need to read more what he's saying here. He said 7. I don't know what that 7 was in reference to. I'm sorry.
7%.
Oh, yep, 7%.
Right.
So it is over-indexing by 10%.
Well, or is it?
Wow.
No, the Latino adults.
Yeah, Latino
is
adults
11%. So it's over-indexing by 6%. Right.
Wow. That's an amazing number right there. All right, let's talk about podcast listening. Mm-hmm. What attracted you to listen to podcasts? 50% topic I'm interested in. Host of a radio show, TV and movie celebrity, music artist, something else. Topic I'm interested in. That
makes sense.
There we go.
And that's what drives all the consumption on
why do you,
YouTube too.
Yeah.
Right?
Why do you listen? Why do I watch sailing channels? It's something I'm interested in.
Topic.
Yep.
Topic, host, and celebrities. So it's a topic, then it's a person,
celebrity, right? Music artist,
or it could be a celebrity, but that actually indexes equally to just being a host that you like. Right.
Cool. All right. Location of where U.S. Latino monthly listeners listen most often. 64% at home, 13% in car, 12% at work, 11% placed somewhere else. Interesting. 64% at home. Do you ever listen to podcasts that have audio only without a video? 78% said yes versus 79% from last year. Video that you actively watch while listening. Wow. 76 to 70. That's like this show.
Right.
Video play in the background or minimize on your device while listening. 66% versus 60% from last year. So I never watch video in the background, though. That's, I guess, the difference in me.
Or listen as the video plays. Is that what you're saying in the background?
No, I watch.
Oh, okay.
So, I can't even tell you when I've ever, it's too distracting to me to listen without watching because usually something's going on. Now, I guess if it's a podcast like this, you can probably, not a lot of interactivity going on. Like today, we're showing screens, but 78% of U.S. Latino monthly podcasters ever listen to podcasts with a video component. Again, 8% listen exclusive podcasts with video that were actively watched while listening. This is why we need to get the lit tag going on here.
Yeah.
Do you listen to podcasts that have video because you use YouTube to listen to watch other types of content, so you also listen to podcasts, 43%. But here's the crazy part, Rob. Again, Dave Jones did that study where he went through and looked at the top 200 list to see actually in Apple Podcasts, category to look and see actually who had YouTube channels. And it was so very small. And there was a few that were breakouts, but just very few. There was not this huge cross correlation. So probably what's happening is the really, really big shows are attracting a lot of audience. But the little shows are attracting none. So,
or there are shows that are just on YouTube that people are perceiving as being podcasts.
I don't know about that. It's again, I looked at what Dave did, and that was pretty compelling to me. And I had wondered as well. Everyone's talking about got to have YouTube. We got YouTube. This show doesn't do crap on YouTube, and it does well as a podcast, but of course this is a podcast show. But again, if you go through the top 200 list of every category and look for the corresponding YouTube channel that goes with the show, there's very few crossovers. So there are some.
Then why are the numbers so high?
That's the question. I don't think it's been.
I think that there's a lot of shows. I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube, and I know you do too, Todd.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shows on YouTube that are done just like what we do here,
right?
But are not out as a podcast.
No, not at all.
So I think what's going on is the listeners are perceiving them as podcasts.
I watch a show called Scam Baiters that is a guy that they're trying to get people, hack those that are scamming people, and it's just like this, right? And they're showing screens and stuff, and but I'm watching the activity of the screen. I don't consider that a podcast, but I don't know. It's easier to pay attention to podcasts with video, 42%. It's easier to listen or watch podcasts on YouTube than other platforms, 36. A podcast with video. Again, please, give me the list. Give me the list of the top 500 podcasts on YouTube that are driving these answers.
Well, Todd, it's got to be like what I'm saying here. It's got to be that there's a lot of shows that are just being produced either live or being done on YouTube that are not, they don't have an audio RSS feed. So, right. I mean, I think that there's maybe an opportunity there for them to do that.
Yeah, maybe it's pure perception again.
I think it is. It's like what we've been saying all along. You know,
I know Tom's shaking. I know Tom's shaking his head right now. I know he's saying nope, 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 nope.
Well, you know, it does doing a podcast now require an RSS feed. I think for some people, I would say that's probably
for listeners, they don't care. But again,
no, even more and more content creators, I would say, especially as you're thinking about YouTube creators.
But most YouTubers are not saying they're podcasters unless they have a real podcast.
But the listeners are perceiving them as being a podcast.
But the thing is, wouldn't you have to say I'm doing a podcast on YouTube? Wouldn't you have to? How would a listener? How would when I watch YouTube, that's a YouTuber. I agree with you. I agree with you, Todd, because we're old school and we like the RSS part of it. But I look for shows on YouTube that are podcasts, and I don't find them.
It's my point, right? But still, 36% of people are seeing them as a podcast.
Yeah, and when you do find them, you look at their listener views or their watch views, and it's like 10, 12, like this show, 20, 25. Not many people are watching on YouTube. At least there are shows out there, huge. Don't get me wrong. There are some that are very, very successful. They are the outliers.
Well, Todd, I think it's also, I've been watching a lot of kind of trainings on how YouTube's algorithm works. And it does skew towards certain topics, and the algorithm will actually create an audience for a show.
But when I specifically search and seek out, because I've been doing this a lot, I keep scratching my head about this whole YouTube thing that keeps coming up.
Yeah. I just think, Todd, we need to learn more about the algorithm at YouTube. And also, for the kind of show that we do, is the users of YouTube looking for the type of content that we're producing? And I'm not quite sure. I mean, I think it's a very, very niche audience on YouTube.
Yeah, I continue to ask podcasters too. I talk to podcasters. You got a YouTube channel?
Right.
How's it doing? And they're like, waste of time. So I don't want to put. Yeah, we see this data, and I'm like, where's the correlation? Will you please tie that together? I want to know. I do. I want that tie-in. Prove to me.
This is the data right here.
It is the data, but the problem is, where are the successful YouTube podcasts that are corresponding to what's in Apple Podcasts? There isn't a correlation at all.
Yeah, I don't think that they are.
There's no correlation.
The content creators on YouTube don't think of themselves as a podcast.
No. Well, then how does a viewer of YouTube think that's a podcast?
Because they have a perception that a podcast is a certain type of content.
Okay. Then that question needs to be asked.
Right. And I think that cuts to the core of this entire issue.
I'm not disputing the data, but I just want to know show me the meat. Show me the beef.
Yeah. It's all in the mind of the listener or the viewer.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's what we're talking about here. It's not a technology thing. It's not a
I know Tom's not over there anymore, but
don't eat me, Tom Webster.
I don't think he would eat us, but I think he would definitely try and clarify on this.
I'd love. That's the thing. It's let's go on here. There's another page of this.
Right.
Do you listen to podcasts have video? Because the podcasts you listen to post short clips, 28%, and that's what most people do.
Right.
Podcasts you listen to is only available with video, 26%. Now there's an interesting number. A podcast you listen to is only available with video.
Right. That's part of the answer to your question.
There we go. Because I'll be honest with you, I know what the percentage of podcasters are actually truly doing video. It's less than 5%.
Right. And then a service you use to listen to podcasts only has podcasts with video.
Oh, interesting.
Which is, I mean, there's really only one platform, right? Or was it Spotify and a few of the apps, right, out there, podcast apps that have video support.
So interesting. You want to make the most of your YouTube premium account. Now, here's another thing, too. Let's just be honest. The majority of podcasters are doing live like you and I are doing video, are not making their podcasts available, AKA we don't have to get technical. They're not making them available via an RSS feed because it's too expensive. So they put it up on YouTube.
Right.
So I can agree.
It's free hosting.
So I can say that I would agree that if this show, in a listener's perspective, if we didn't have this show available as video and someone watches on YouTube, they'd say, yeah, that's a podcast because we portray as a podcast.
Well, Todd, also, I think as you look at this show doesn't have a separate channel either. So
no,
but I don't know that's necessarily a huge issue, but we also don't mention in the show, click the
go click the subscribe button
and the bell, right? Ring the bell.
Right.
And check out these videos.
But I don't hear podcasters that have YouTube, which are the few I can find, doing that either. So
right. Because we're catering to what we perceive as a different user
different audience.
Right? Well, that doesn't have those proprietary tools.
So the mystery continues. I'm not trying to be an old curmudgeon. I'm just trying to understand and wrap my brain around this.
Yeah, and I think this helps paint the picture. I do agree. Podcasts you listen to. Joe Rogan has clips that he posts.
Well, I think does he still do it now?
Yeah, he's still posting like 2 or 3 minute clips of his episodes.
So that's what he's by contract allowed to do with Spotify. So
right. So that could be a lot of what you're seeing there is people are seeing clips like that as podcasts because they're Joe Rogan.
So here's an interesting thing. Podcast topics U.S. Latino monthly podcast listeners ever listen to. Music's number 1, comedy number 2, society and culture number 3, true crime number 4, TV and movies 4, sports 5, health and fitness 6, tech 7, politics 8, music. Now the challenge with doing music, I guess I need to start sampling some music shows and see how they're doing it these days. And then let's go down the list.
And technology is pretty low on that list, down there with politics.
Well, history, national news. The list continues. Personal development, science, games, education. Let's go see what's at the bottom. Local news, language, climate, kids and family fiction, news from Latin America, international news. That's at the bottom of the list. So, which of the following music artists would you be interested in listening to on a podcast if they host a podcast? Shakira at 44. Jennifer Lopez at 40, Selena Gomez at 37, Bad Bunny at 32. I don't know who she is. Mark Anthony at 31, Karol G. I know who Mana is, 24, Camila Cabello, 23, Romeo Santos, 22. So again, it's got a list of artists. Some of them I know, some I do not,
and quite a few Latino.
Of course.
I see here.
Yeah, of course.
Which makes sense. This is a Latino podcast listener report. So
Latin music's fun. Which is fine types of music: hip hop, pop Latino, classic rock, alternative rock, R&B, bachata, top 40, country, reggaeton, banda, Christian. Now you're not going to see that in a top 10 list of a U.S. listener.
No.
Classical, dance, soft rock, salsa, Goes on and on. So, interesting. How closely do you follow U.S. national news? 44%. Very closely. Somewhat closely, 38. Local news, 42, 39. News from Latin America, 30, 35. I bet you they get their Latin news. Well, this is just in general. This isn't on podcast.
Yeah.
How interested you in listening to a local news podcast that primarily includes stories about perspectives from Latinos? 50% very interested, somewhat interested 37, not interested all 13. So about 50-50 there. In the past year, ever directly paid or given money to any local news source? 37 yes, 63 no. I think that's flipped. If I remember the previous Edison report, I think it was pretty high. Such as subscribing to, in the past year, have you directly paid or given money to any local news service? Okay, this isn't any podcast.
That's just any kind of news source.
Any. 37 yes, 63 no.
It doesn't bode well for the news industry, does it?
No, but what's that number for podcasts then? Is it the same split? How important is it for you to know about weather? 69, crime 67, prices 66, government politics 58. Goes down and down and down. Weather. Why are you worried about weather?
Well.
Okay.
Extreme storms are a brewing, Todd.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Don't start on the whole climate change. Latino podcast. All right. So this comes from, this is, I think, a pull from the previous report from Edison, right?
It looks like it.
Yeah. So this breaks out U.S. population, podcast creators. We've already seen this. Okay. Yeah. When did you most recently listen to a podcast that was hosted by Latinos? 38% within a week, 28% within a month, 13% within the last 6 months, 10% more than 4 months, 6 months, and 11% never. So it tells you they're listening.
Yeah, definitely.
Listen to a podcast that hosted by Latinos last month. 66 compared to 62% between 21 and 22.
It's going up.
As a result of hearing a sponsorship, here we go, or advertisement on a podcast you listen to, have you ever? 69% gathered more information, recommended product to a friend or family. That's what happens on my show. People recommend to friends and families and people that they know. Of course, I tell them not to write on the bathroom wall, but purchased a service, 55%. Use the promotion or discount code mentioned, it's 52. These are great numbers.
Well, I've told many family and friends about your GoDaddy relationship to go check it out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what that
6 degrees of separation. Get you 2 or 3 down the road. Yep.
Right. It all adds up.
It does. Everyone counts towards my monthly minimum. As a result of hearing a sponsorship or advertisement on a podcast you regularly listen to, have you ever said yes to gathering more information about a product? 76%. Okay, so they break this down by red, black, or blue, and gray. Latinos listen to a podcast hosted by Latinos. Listen to a podcast hosted by more than a month. Never listen to a Latino. Okay, so this is within the last month, more than a month, and never. So 76, 55, 39. So definitely those that listen more, buy more, or gather more. Recommend a product, 74, 50, 32. Purchase a product or service, 64, 39, 25, 50 cents. So basically, anyone that's listening is acting more on ads they hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's also, this also a testament to duration of campaigns. It's not an issue of frequency as much as it takes time for people to convert. And I think that's what you've tapped into with your GoDaddy relationship, is that you've built a reputation as a place to potentially get a promo code.
Yeah. So Emily says, I have a lot of folks coming to me to start podcasts and are confused. It's different from a YouTube channel. I think Rob's right. The average listener doesn't know the difference between a channel and what they call a podcast. Well, maybe you're onto something there. Yeah. Andrew says, sure, so true. I don't think they truly care which is concerning to a point. I always have to explain the difference to my clients and the potential outcomes of choosing a video podcast only on YouTube or an audio podcast via RSS feed. Remember, you can do video podcasts via RSS feed too.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah,
yep. That's what this show does.
Yeah, we do both. Yeah. All right, let's move on here. Spanish podcast listening. Have you ever listened to a podcast that was mostly English? U.S. Latino monthly podcast listener, 90% said yes.
Wow.
That's huge.
Yeah. Which bodes well for English advertising, right?
Born outside of the U.S., that number drops to 77%. First generation 94, second generation 94, third gen 94. That's massive.
Yeah. So it doesn't.
So
it looks like that you don't have to be running ads to Latinos that are in Spanish.
The question needs to be asked, and it should have been. I wish they'd have asked, are you bilingual? How are you completely fluent in English? Are you, that would also tell us something too. Obviously if they're listening to English podcasts, then they're fluent in English as well, or maybe they're learning. Because if you're second generation or third generation, you're going to easily speak English and Spanish both. First gen probably. I
think it's born outside of the U.S. is the ones that have the lowest.
Yeah, it had 77% because maybe they have the lowest. Of course, here, we're being stereotypical. Here in the United States, we're the only country that mostly only speaks one language. Everyone outside the United States speaks 2 or 3 languages.
Yeah,
or smattering.
I think that's changing as we're, but you're right. I think generally that's the case. I mean, even looking at these numbers would tell you that things are definitely shifting more towards English.
And here's where the numbers flip. Have you listened to a podcast that was mostly in Spanish? U.S. Latinos monthly podcast listeners 64%, born outside 78, first gen 67, second 46, 43. So that's where probably the language thing changes.
Yeah. That makes sense.
How interested would you be in listening to podcasts made specifically to help you learn and improve your Spanish? 46, interesting. English, 51, another language, 36. 46% they would want. You think about it, my kids, their Japanese sucks. So if they were exposed to a Japanese podcast, it would help them improve because they're essentially first gen. I don't know how you consider that. It's split. Interesting. I think this makes sense.
Yeah, I think that I think the distinction here is understanding and comprehension versus speaking, right? In a particular language, I think is where the lines are drawn here. People want to learn English, right? So they can speak it.
I understand more than I can speak.
Right.
Like Japanese.
That's exactly. I think that's exactly what's going on, even in the Spanish Latino community too. Right?
Thinking about all of the Spanish language podcasts that you listen to, how many of them have advertisements? All of them. 36? Whoa, that's wow. Most of them 40.
40. Wow.
Some of them that is outside the norm of English podcasts. Holy cow. Wow. 76%? That's wow.
Well, are a lot of podcasts though that are done in Spanish? Are they really? Some of them rebroadcast radio.
Well, I know, but still, that's a big number.
Oh, it is a big number.
It's a big number.
A lot bigger than I think English. Shows.
30% maybe on English shows, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Of course, you and I are going to help change that number. Our companies are going to try to change that number. How many advertisements that you hear on Spanish language podcasts are in Spanish? All of them 34, most of them 40, some of them 25. See, Wow.
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 That's also shocking, too.
That's a shocking number.
Well, considering what the penetration of comprehension in English is, that seems a little out of alignment.
But still, it's a high number.
But maybe people would prefer to hear the ads in Spanish.
That blows me away.
It's almost the same as above, right?
Wow. That's crazy. With none of them, 1%.
Wow.
Wow. How do you prefer to listen to advertisements on Spanish language podcasts, both in English and Spanish? 53%, entirely Spanish 21%, entirely English 17%, no preference 9%.
So how exactly do you do it in both languages?
Well, the best way I can describe it.
Spanglish? Is that what it is?
Or, like Tagalog. If I'm watching something on YouTube that is in Tagalog, it is Tagalog with a mixture of English. There's just like this you hear it and then you get 5 words of English and they back into Tagalog and it's back and forth.
Yeah, so they're bouncing back and forth.
They're bouncing back and forth. So I'm assuming this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And I don't.
So it is a form of Spanglish
but
then.
I don't hear that. I hear that of course, Tagalog is a little bit Spanish based.
Mm-hmm.
And again, for the Filipinos listening to the show, just forgive me if I don't get it completely right. But I think this is a phenomenon you don't hear when people in French, when people in France speak French, there is no English.
Right.
There is no English intermixed. And in German, there is no English intermixed. But if you get outside of those some of those hardcore languages, in Sweden, they may intermix, and I think it's some languages are more like, we're proud, we're not intermixing. I think most English podcasts are probably 100% English and don't mix any other languages. But that's interesting. Yeah, but Spanglish, I guess that's the right way to say it. How do you prefer to listen to advertisements on Spanish language podcasts? Both English and Spanish, 53%. Born in the U.S., 55%. Born outside 40%. That number is about the same as that other one. So, how do you usually feel when you hear English advertisements on Spanish language podcasts? It's more interesting to you, 36%. It bothers you, 12%. It really doesn't matter, 52%. Born outside the U.S., it's more interesting, 22%. It bothers you, 11%. 67%, it doesn't really matter to you. This is an interesting slide, too.
Yeah, well, the one that jumps out at me is the born outside of the U.S., 67%. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
How
do you usually feel when you hear English advertisements on? Okay, so I've been reporting when there's been Spanish ads running on my podcast. I'm telling, what are you doing?
Right.
So I'm on the side of it matters to me. Where this is contrary to, I'm going to have to really sit back and think a little bit here. Maybe it's not a big deal.
I don't think it is. I think more and more people have English comprehension.
Well, okay, so ask this to an primarily English-speaking person and see why these numbers flip. See if you get the same split. Let's say this question was asked, how do you feel when you hear Spanish advertisements on English language podcasts? If that was the question and the audience was mostly English speakers, where would this fall out? I think the number would be dramatically different.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be inverse of this.
It would be, I think that it bothers you would be like 80%.
Right.
Maybe no, let's go a little less. Maybe 56%. That's my prediction. Wow, completely different. It's just a completely different perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what's complicated about ads that are done in other languages. It's complicated.
Takeaway.
Yeah.
Spanish podcast promotion can be better, and Latino podcast audience is maturing. So again, thank you to Donde Media, LWC Studios, Libsyn, PRX, and XXM Media for sponsoring the Edison Research Latino Podcast Listen Report for 2022.
Yeah.
Wow. That one makes my brain hurt a little bit. A few of those slides make me, it's like having this parody shift, right?
Well, like they keep saying, this study is something, that, trying to dig into the listener, right?
Yeah.
And how they see this market is not something that the industry has seen before. So, because we're always so focused on, the overall market and things like that. But
yeah.
This is interesting how things have changed and how other languages are having an impact on the medium and how we need to start thinking maybe a little differently than maybe we have been.
Yeah. Jeff says, I'd love to hear Todd speak in Spanish. Believe me, Jeff, you do not. Hola.
You want to see you
¿Cómo
try.
está? Hermosa.
Don't even ask me to try. Right.
Español.
Yeah.
I already destroy the English language bad enough. I have this cool translator app. It's by Google. It'll speak to you. It's pretty fabulous.
It's amazing how that works.
Well, it doesn't work that great because but
it's not perfect, right?
No,
it doesn't always get everything just right.
Not at all. And it's even more funny when you try to do Portuguese, because we have a lot of customers in Brazil, and sometimes I'm holding the phone up to the and trying to get the Portuguese to translate. I'm reading. I'm like, I don't understand this at all, and I speak back, and it translates it into Portuguese, and it's I said, let's do this on email.
Right. Well. I'm excited, Todd. Next week, podcast movement.
Yeah. So here's the question I actually entitled our YouTube channel today. It was before you sent me over the slide, the image stuff, because, I know you don't. What will be the podcast movement takeaway
from our show?
Nope.
Oh, the overall takeaway from the show.
Yeah.
I'd say, based on what I'm hearing, it's going to be podcast 2.0.
Oh.
And what's going to happen to RSS?
Can we say what we know already is happening?
Well, there's a meetup that's happening.
I think it's invite only at this point, though.
Yeah. And it's targeted towards platforms that have a piece of the pie, right?
I've seen the guest list on there. There's a few interesting attendees, and I'm not going to say who.
Right. Well, Todd, I mean, we've done a meetup like this.
Yeah, we've done it before.
Right.
That I don't have permission to say who's all coming.
Right.
So I'm.
It's a coalition of loosely related, connected companies that are talking about, maybe some new. And
you and I are actually doing a call
standards
tomorrow with somebody. So We're actually having a pre-podcast call, pre-podcast movement call, pre-meetup call with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is here's one thing that I took away from, and if you're a podcaster, you're not listening to RSS 2.0 or it's not RSS, podcast 2.0 podcast, you missed one heck of an edition on episode, I think, what was it, 97? I'm going to have to look at my app here. Let me open this up. You're doing yourself a disservice by not listening to Dave and Adam. And there was a takeaway I had from episode, let me look here, episode 97. And I'm going to be frank here. They don't care who does it. Do it. Go out and do it. Go out and copy their work. Use it. Make resources. Give credit, obviously, but they don't own any of it. They just want people to do it. That's that to me. And here's the thing. I think that many times, even I was like, well, there needs to be a committee, or there needs to be a this or this and that. No, there doesn't. There you just go do it. Oh, now you're getting fancy with the colors here, Rob. Everyone, yep. Rob is half green, half pink right now. So, okay, so you turned it to Libsyn green. Is that what you'd say?
Yes.
So see, be careful here, partner, because I have some of those colored lights in storage, and we can light it up in here too. So
we can have
light wars. Yeah,
right.
But the main thing in the podcast 2.0 deal is just do it. And that's why Cridlin came out with he's building a resource to, in fact, where is James? So let me see if I can find him here real quick. Here we go.
Don't eat me, James Cridland.
Yeah, so that's somehow I got a channel dropping off here. Did I?
Don't eat me, James Cridland.
It didn't come across very good. He started a new website that's going to basically lay out the spec and talk. And it was basically, I know why he did. I laughed when I got the email because I said, oh, someone listened to episode 97 and went out and registered a domain name. So, it was kind of comical to me a little bit, and good. Someone needs to do it. I don't have the time, but there is, well, it's that analogy. You start at the top. You got a big, nice hill. You got nice, wet snow on the ground. You start with a little bit of a snowball, and you roll it down the hill, and it gets speed, and it gets bigger and bigger. Well, there is in my opinion, and I agree with Adam, a year from now, the landscape is going to look very different for Podcast 2.0. There's going to be those that have and those that are, oh crap.
Yeah. Well, I think that the bell was rung, right? When Spotify announced that, RSS was antiquated and
I don't think that was
the pasture.
Nope. I think they've been nurturing this thing.
Oh, I know they have been.
And working hard. And it's just like,
well, I think we all feel a sense of urgency though.
They pound. Yeah. But again, it's a different perspective that I've now attained. It's like I've realized that I can't wait for the 97% to figure it out. I have to build it for the 3% so we can inform the 97%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
have, we're just as responsible for driving this as everything else. I had made a comment. Oh, can I say? I can't say where. Yeah, I can't say where. Because I get in trouble if I say where. I made a comment about you should be listening to this. And the response from somebody in the industry was like, oh, it's just a few people participating. I'm like, oh, I think it's just more than a few. And it was just like this immediate dismissal. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, see you. See you later. See you later. It's okay. You lead a horse to water.
Right.
Should I be promoting?
You can't force me to drink, though.
Should I be promoting this? No. I'm the competitive disadvantage to be saying, get on the train.
Right.
But we want the podcasting space to grow. It's bigger than Blueberry. It's bigger than Libsyn. Who are we doing this for? We're doing this for the listeners. We're doing this for the podcasters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there is, in part of what's put us in this situation is competitive interests. And I think and that's, that comes with the development of a commercial ecosystem, right? Where people are investing lots of money and want a return from it.
Monday.
Puts pressure.
Come Monday, I'm going to cause pressure. and something we're doing. We're going to cause you at Libsyn pressure.
Well, no. I would also just say it's what we all should be doing. We should all be innovating, trying to do something new, but also embrace industry-wide kind of standard practices too. And I think that needs to come to advertising as well.
But I'm not talking about advertising. We're all racing towards that. All of us are racing.
It's all part of the mix.
Yeah.
And it's going to be core to people's motivations for innovating.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't.
And Tom, I stole a word for my programmatic product page. I stole a word from you. I used the word bridge. So I used the word bridge. You were so ever eloquently mentioned that in one of your previous newsletters. That bridge. That's a perfect word. This is a bridge. And for those of you that haven't read the newsletter, you have no idea what the heck I'm just talking about. So,
well, Todd, let's talk about our live show at Podcast Movement that's coming up.
Yeah,
I sent you a slide for that, so you can share that.
Yeah, I see if I can bring that up here.
And
because I loaded because I've already got the live stream scheduled and stuff because Dan and his team needed it. So let's see if I can bring this up. There we go.
We already have a live YouTube link that's available for the live show out of Podcast Movement. So and I believe this is the only public session that's going to be streamed live.
That's
publicly.
Right. So actually, they're going to pick up our YouTube stream and put it up on Podcast Movement. And of course, all our streams should be up because I'll have everything trigger. So you'll find us here. You find us on YouTube. You find us on newmediashow.com/live.
Right.
But so as Adam said, too many panelists. But Friday, August 26th at 11:30 to 12:45 Dallas time, which is 12:30 to 1:45 Eastern.
Yep.
On Friday. And we're going to have
in the Lone Star B
breakout room,
which I believe is the keynote stage.
Yeah,
right?
So we're going to have Heather Osgood, founder and CEO of True Native Media. We're going to have Adam Curry, founder of podcastindex.org and of the Podfather.
Right.
And James Cridland, editor of Pod News. Tangia Estrada, co-founder of BIPOC, B-I-P-O-C, Podcast Creators. What does BIPOC stand for?
Black Indigenous Podcast.
And if we got that wrong, we apologize, Tangia. So yes, we're going to have 6 of us, and that means you and I can't talk. So what?
Well, we have to be quick with the questions, and then make sure everybody has a comment about each of the maybe 4 questions that we can cover.
Rob.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see here. 3 minutes.
Hour and 15 minutes. We should be able to
you
make that
might get 4 questions answered. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But what is our focus? We're definitely going to be talking about RS 2.0.
Well, I could read you the description that I wrote for the session.
Okay, go ahead.
There was, for almost 2 decades, podcasting has been open and based on a really simple syndication, RSS. And when podcasters publish a podcast series and podcast episodes, is available to many different podcasting platforms. So today we are seeing growing interest in removing RSS as a default from publishing and distribution process to enable direct to individual platform publishing. Example, YouTube, which I think is a good example of it, publishing and viewing. And what it did to video podcasting in the early days of podcasting. So I think that there's a little bit of concern, and we'll talk about that issue. Do we see a YouTube of podcasting really happening? And I'm not talking about YouTube being that. I'm talking about maybe another platform, like maybe a Spotify. And are we seeing a move towards larger platforms more like a YouTube, adopting a walled garden type publishing and monetization approach as the direction that we want for podcasting as we move forward. So do we want to have a bunch of large platforms where each podcaster goes in and uploads separately?
Well, I don't know if that's going to be a question, because I think the whole panel is going to say no. But
right. Well, yeah, but I think it would be good if we had a little bit of objective view on it, because if you look at what's going on around us, around podcasting, just about all the other mediums have that, right? Video, music,
and look at the
TV, movies.
Yep, and look at how that's really taking care of creators in that situation. Mm-hmm.
Right, agreed. So that's the thing. It's the open versus closed platform of podcasting. I believe that the industry is exploring that as an option. And should we be concerned about the recent push towards professionalization and revenue as we move forward into these platforms and these large vertically integrated podcasting platforms? But I'm going to take us into other topics as well, not just what's in the description. But that's the core, I think, of what the bigger topic that we can talk on stage about.
All right. So, yeah, I want to see your questions before the day before, so we can negotiate on those.
Okay, fair enough. No, I want your input too. If you want to throw in a few, on there, I'll add it to the list.
So if anyone that's listening has a fireball question that you think we should add to the list, seeing this esteemed panel we have,
sure.
Let us know too, because I know 3 of these people really, really well. I don't know Tangia at all, so I don't know what her perspective on this is going to be. So, you look at Heather; she's pretty OG. Adam's the original OG. James is the working to be the kingmaker right now. So,
well, I think James is more open to questioning the status quo of the industry, right, and pushing the envelope. And I think we can all agree that RSS is the core, and we need to cherish it and develop it and expand it and add some innovation to it. Keep this industry vibrant from an open perspective.
One thing I want us to remember going into this, Rob, and I think it's really important. There's 2 people. There's 2 parties in this that are important, and only 2.
Right.
The podcaster, who's a creator,
and the listener.
Right. All of us in between don't matter. What matters is the creator and the listener. If we can figure out how to help both of those parties,
right,
and get out of our own way.
Yeah, I think it's another question about I think larger media companies and entities that think about this from a commercial perspective do tend to oftentimes think that their customer is the advertisers, and the audience is the product. And I think that this is an interesting topic for us to talk about too, is that this medium was built on, just like what you said, Todd, creator and listener.
That right? Direct relationship.
Right. And the advertiser has always been kind of like, on the side, right? May or may not be involved in that relationship.
Yep.
And I think that's where it needs to stay.
So I think it'll be a great conversation. Again, it'll be the only free panel coming out of Podcast Movement. So if you're not going to be there, then this is your opportunity to. I think this is going to be a great panel. Of course, it'll be up as a podcast too. We're going to have the recording,
right,
and it'll be available immediately for you to listen, even if you can't watch. If you're still at work that day, you'll be able to come back to it and watch on YouTube or watch wherever.
I think we're really lucky, Todd, because I think we're the only, live podcast that's able to get up on stage at a lot of these podcasting events. and talk about these key industry issues and topics. And certainly we want to hear from you as the listener of the show or viewer of the show on those big key topics that you think are out there too, that we want to talk about in the session too.
Yep.
So,
and again, maybe we'll have to also, from your questioning standpoint, maybe there's stuff that only apply to, maybe James and Adam, and then maybe some questions that will only be more applicable to Heather and Tangia. I don't know. Maybe you can split it that way too, so that we can get a little more in there.
Yeah,
I don't know what. And
I think, I agree, Todd. I think tapping into each of the panelists' kind of expertise somewhat, and then get conversation happening around that. I think is key. Yeah, so everybody gets something out of it.
And we will be watching the helipad, which is the boost during the live. So if anybody boosts during the show, we'll definitely call that out. I've been promised some boost from the audience, which will be fun. So we'll definitely show the value for value to the audience that's listening and watching the show. I want to make one comment, Rob. Do you see this new thing over my shoulder? Have you watched it today a little bit? It's
a little. Was it a blueberry clock? Is that what it is?
Well, you got the blueberry logo, but below it, and again,
text.
It's a product that's called Tidbit, Tidbyt. They sent it. Full disclosure, they sent me a free one to review. You plug it in, you use the app, you can put all kinds of messages in there. So I've got a matrix flow, and you and I was actually kind of thinking maybe the audience couldn't see it. But in the produced video, you can see it real good. So it shows a Twitter account. It shows a matrix, shows the time. It'll do all kinds of crazy things. So it's called Tidbit. Not an endorsement, but I just, it was kind of a fun thing someone sent me. I have no idea what it cost.
Todd, I went out and got myself a drone. So you can see it on the shelf back behind me.
Which one have you got?
It's the DJI, was it the Mini 3 Pro?
Oh, yeah, I have one of those. It's a nice little drone, absolutely.
Yeah.
So they're fun. Don't crash it. It's pretty hard to crash unless you fly it into a tree or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's got front and bottom and back.
Is this your first one?
Yeah, I've never had one before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and these actually do pretty well indoors too. So I actually was flying around our office in Columbus. You saw that video that Facebook where we all waved? That was my drone hovering.
So you can just push a button on the screen on my pad back here, and it'll raise up, I think, 4 feet in the air, and it just hover. Yeah,
well, again, be careful. The trouble with drones in flying indoors is when you get in a corner, they don't do well. So stay away from corners.
Yeah, that, or if it has the sensors on it.
Well, you turn off the collision avoidance, you get in a corner, it's going to flip over and crash. So
which isn't good for it.
No, it's not. You'll be using one of your 3 warranty calls to come in and have a replacement. So
probably have to replace some rotor blades on it.
Oh, that was not a boost. That was a text. So for those of I don't know if any of you heard that, but it was not a boost. Okay. Well, let's get off in here.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody down in Dallas if you're going to be down there, and if you're not, check out the live show next. It'll be next Friday.
Friday, and we'll have the embed up on the website pretty quickly, along with extra details. newmediashow.com/live is probably the best place to see the YouTube embed. Again, if you watch here, it'll be here too. But we will not be watching the chat room.
No, we won't be.
That doesn't usually work unless I have a laptop on my lap, which is kind of weird.
Well, you could have a phone open in front of you.
Yeah, probably. But still, it's hard. Maybe a tablet or something. We'll see if that works.
So it's going to be, if you're on the East Coast, it's going to be
12:30
p.m. on Friday the 26th.
Yep.
It's going to go for an hour and 15 minutes. And if you're on the West Coast, it'll be 10 to... It'll be 9:30.
See, they're 1 hour from Central, so 2 hours. Yeah,
2 hours. So it'll be 9:30.
9:30 on the
West Coast.
Okay, everyone. It's been fun doing the show with you. Thank you for being here. And we will be back with you on Friday live in Dallas. And everyone take care. Have a great week. I'm Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter as well at Rob Greenlee. And you can certainly send me an email if you want to, robg@lipson.com. And if you want to meet up at Podcast Movement, send me an email.
Or use the app.
Thanks.
Yep.
Or use the app, right? I've been reaching out to a lot of people in the app too, so trying to connect with people.
All right, everyone. See you next time.
Yep.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.